Hi children, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do a lesson from Footprints Without Feet, which is for class 10th English. The lesson's name is A Triumph of Surgery by James Harriet. We are going to do the important questions here, including the question from the 2020 exam. In case you feel that this video is useful to you, then please subscribe to my channel, because in my channel you are going to get everything that you need to know for your English exam. What we are going to see in this video today is a 1 markers with the answers and 2 markers with the answers. The link that I've shared with you is the quick revision summary points. If you want to do very quickly, you just want to glance at the summary, or you also want to listen to the detailed explanation, you can listen to it. It also has the meanings of difficult words. Let us start with the 1 mark questions along with the answers. Children, I have told you that whichever lesson you are learning, the first thing you should do is learn the lesson or the poem's name along with the name of the author or the poet. Please also pay attention to the spellings when you learn. Number 1, name of the lesson. Answer: A Triumph of Surgery. Author: James Harriet. 3, what was the author's profession? He was a veterinary doctor. What was the problem with Tricky? Tricky could eat anything at any time of the day and night. This was a problem because all the time he was eating something or the other. 5, what was Harriet's solution to Tricky's problem? The author, James Harriet's solution was that Tricky's food should be reduced and he should get plenty of exercise. Question number 6. What, according to Mrs. Pumphrey, was wrong with Tricky? According to Mrs. Pumphrey, Tricky was listless. Listless means restless. He would not be calm. He also didn't have any energy. 7. What was Harriet's decision when he saw a sick Tricky? Harriet decided that Tricky should be taken to his center for treatment. Harriet's center for treatment. Why did the author tell Mrs. Pumphrey that Tricky needed a surgery? The author, James Harriet, told Mrs. Pumphrey that Tricky needed a surgery because only then she would part with Tricky and the author could give Tricky proper treatment. Actually, Tricky did not need a surgery, but he had to say it in order to take Tricky to his center. 9. What was the treatment given to the dog? Tricky was not given much to eat and was encouraged to run and play with the other dogs. That was all the treatment he required. 10. Why did Harriet feel guilty about keeping Tricky longer than necessary? When Tricky was with the author, James Harriet, Mrs. Pumphrey would send a lot of good food and wine to improve Tricky's health. All this was enjoyed by the author himself and his assistant. Hence, Harriet felt guilty about keeping Tricky with him unnecessarily. Now we move on to 2 mark questions with their answers. Number 1, how did Harriet know that Tricky was sick and would soon need help? Tricky's appearance had changed. He had become hugely fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy. Bloodshot means red, rheumy means watery. Stared straight ahead and his tongue lolled from his jaws. Lolled means it was just hanging limply. So Harriet knew Tricky was unwell. Question number 2. What was the major flaw with Tricky? This was the question that had come last year. Tricky's only flaw was his greed. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or the night. Besides, he didn't exercise much. Question number 3. Why did James Harriet expect a call from Mrs. Pumphrey? Actually, Mr. Harriet had just met them and at that time only he felt he is going to get the call from Mrs. Pumphrey. The author, James Harriet, had met Mrs. Pumphrey and Tricky by chance. He was shocked to see Tricky as Tricky was bloated. His eyes were watery and he could barely walk. Harriet understood that Tricky was very ill and so he expected a call from Mrs. Pumphrey. Question number 4. What treatment did the author suggest? Why? The author, James Harriet, suggested that a surgery be performed on Tricky and only this could cure him. He said this so he could take Tricky with him to his center and give proper treatment. If he had not mentioned the surgery, Mrs. Pumphrey would not have parted with her pet dog. Question number 5. How can we say that Mrs. Pumphrey found it difficult to part with Tricky? Tricky was more like a child than a pet to Mrs. Pumphrey. When Harriet told her that Tricky needed a surgery, she almost swooned. Swooned means fainted. She was distraught. She was very unhappy. She was sure Tricky would pine for her. She kept wailing and was in tears as Harriet took the dog with him. Question number 6. What were the lessons learnt by Tricky in the center? In Harriet's center, where there were a lot of dogs, Tricky was treated as someone who was just as other dogs. He was not treated as someone important. He had to fight for what he wanted. He learned to eat very quickly. He also learned to run and play with other dogs, which made him healthy and muscular. Question number 7. How did the other dogs treat him? At first, the other dogs were curious. They sniffed at him. Later, they rolled him over but soon lost interest in him. Finally, they accepted him as a member of their pack, tossed him over and played with him. Question number 8. Did Tricky enjoy his stay at the center? This is also a very important question. Tricky enjoyed his stay at the center. In 2 weeks, he had been transformed into a lithe, hard muscle animal. Lithe is quite slim and very, very active. He was keeping up well with the pack, running and playing with them. Thus, he had become friends with all the dogs at the center and enjoyed his time there. With this, we come to the end of the 2 markers and the 1 marker. Thanks for watching.